Hi, welcome back to the Spirit's Path. This is Dee, and today's tarot card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot deck is the Two of Stones and Challenge. And when I was meditating on this card today, the thought was, okay, what's going to be the challenge that I'm going to have to face today, or that you're going to have to face today? And the more I thought about it, and the message that was coming through is the challenge of balancing both the Ace of Bows and the Ace of Arrows. All right, because one's fire energy and one's air energy. So this is kind of like a verification confirmation card that for these two cards, that it's going to be you can't have equanimity amongst both those cards. There's going to be one's either going to have more passion and a little less communication, or vice versa. Right? There's going to be some more communication and less passion or creativity. So, in a normal Rider-Waite tarot deck, this is the Two of Pentacles, which is a guy, balancing everything that's going on. Okay, it's choosing that priority. Okay, where this card is about manifesting that energy for power or force. All right, this is a reminder that you want to have a balanced energy between both the Ace of Bows and the Ace of Arrows, the fire of life, the spark of life, as well as the breath of life. All right, because they both go hand in hand. Okay, we talked about that over the last couple of days. So, as you're moving forward throughout your day, think about how you can keep as equal as you can in both those new beginnings. All right, having the passion and the drive to move forward in that thought process that's going on, because when you're able to do that, okay, and you tie this Two of Stones card in there, this challenge, you start bringing in the element of the earth. Okay, and that's what stones represents. Okay, and as we move forward with, combining the air and the fire and the earth, we start getting self-empowerment. Okay, we start getting that confidence, that security in what this card is talking about. Security in knowing that the passion that we have for this creative project that we thought up for is going to have that's going to help develop our self-empowerment, our self-confidence, our self-esteem. Okay, and when that starts developing based on that project that you're thinking about, all right, and you start putting those plans into action, it gives you that self-confidence. All right, so let's put this into an analogy. Okay, let's say you've got a room downstairs that you want to work on. All right. Through what's going on, you say to yourself, okay, first thing I need to do is clear out that room. Okay, get rid of everything in there that that you don't need. So you're doing that cleansing action. You're doing that change. Okay, or fate and destiny, and you're getting rid of the stuff that you've been tied to, like the blasted oak. Once you get everything out, now you can look at the four bare walls, the floor, the ceiling. Okay, now that vision comes into play, right? That Ace of Arrows, that breath of life, you can see it in your mind's eye when you sit back and you take that rest. You can see exactly where your new hobby room is going to be. Let's say whether it's stamped collection or whatever, and you want to make this into a my mom was into, all this decorative stuff, I can't remember, but, doing cards and things on that nature. So, you have this vision of what's going on. Okay. You got everything out. Now it's time to clean it up. Okay. And you start putting that vision into action, which is the Ace of Bows, that spark of life. All right. And then you get to a point where it's like, now that you've got everything clean, I want to repaint it. All right, I want to seal it from, moisture and stuff like that, based on what's going on in there. Then you start buying the curtains. Then you start buying the curtain rods. right? You start changing the lighting within the room, okay? You start looking at, different things that you can do to turn it into, this dungeon into this, big, huge, majestic castle, right? There's so much that goes into it because why? All right. One, you're putting the action and the thought process into play. Okay. And when you do that, when it's all said, done, and finished, and you got your shelves in there and you got a nice table and, you can do all your sewing or whatever in that room. Okay. Now you've grounded it. Okay. Because you were self-empowered to move forward. You met that challenge. All right. And as you went around, went through that, you've learned some lessons along the way. And then, when friends come over and you show them this room, and you show them the pictures of before and after, they're going to be floored because they're going to like, how did you do all this? And again, it's looking at it and saying, I had a thought process. All right. And I had a vision of what I wanted to see. And with that vision, I put that action, that passion, that creativity into play. So, through that process of cleaning out that room and getting it to, your Taj Mahal, let's say, all right, there were some challenges. There were some obstacles going through there, all right? But you didn't waver off of the creativity or the thought process. You kept a balanced approach as you're going through there. All right. And that challenge, maybe you have to take a break so you can, maybe it's costing you, a couple $100 to go through and do everything. And you're like, this is getting costly. So you take that step back for a week or two, and look at, different things that say, hey, maybe I don't need to do this. Maybe I don't need to do that. Right. It's that challenge, that playing back and forth to, having the finances to see that vision through with the creative process that you have. And that's where, again, where that stability and security is, with the earth energy here, but, as you get more into it and you become more grounded and you're like, what, I'm just going to get this done. Right. Then you can just go ahead and be, have that positive action moving forward. All right. You've got the security, you've got the stability, right? You see them, you got the materialism in making this, this dream or this vision come true. All right. And with that, you've got that spark of life. You've got that breath of life because now you're breathing it into a project. Now you're putting the passion into it and you're making your own. And when you can make something your own and you're self-empowered doing it, you can take pride in what you've accomplished and know that what you've accomplished is the goal that you had set out, right? So, and with that, there's a lot of change going on. But you've manifested all that. You manifested the change. You put it in your mind's eye on what it looks like. And boom, now you have your finished product. And with that, you've got the reward of a nice place where you can, do your card, cutting or, your sewing or whatever. Okay. And that's by staying clear and focused on those objectives. And when you can stay, focused on those objectives, it meets that creative passion that you have. All right. All because you stay grounded. And that, that's really the message, that came through today was, the challenge of keeping that balance between the Ace of Bows and the Ace of Arrows as you're moving forward on your quest, whether that's you can use that analogy, in a relationship or, in a project at work, right? Even with your coworkers and stuff like that. It's the aces are new opportunities. Okay. And then it's just become a balance of, okay, how can I balance these two opportunities to have a positive outcome, which I know is going to be grounded and give me more stability and security moving forward. So that's today's card of the day out of the Wildwood Tarot deck, the Two of Stones challenge. Hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, share with others, give me a thumbs up. And this is D for a Spirit's Path. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. God bless. Stay safe, everybody.